The No Nonsense Roundtable, a weekly radio show and podcast where host Dom Genova interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. And now, here's your host, Dom Genova.
Well, my guest in the studio with me right now is a fellow by the name of Nick Stefanovic. He is the director of the Monroe County Veterans Services, and I think this is only your second time on the show. It was way back again. I think it might have been 2020 or so. So welcome back again.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it had to have been before COVID.
So Nick is here for two reasons. One is to talk about what he does and the veterans, and also to tell us a little bit about his story, because a portion of my show is honoring a veteran, and he is a veteran. And well, let me ask you that silly question I ask everybody first. What did you want to do when you were 10 years old?
Oh, when I was 10 years old, I don't even remember having thoughts about what I wanted to do. Probably the typical stuff that little kids say: astronaut, doctor. I think doctor. I was on a doctor kick for a long time. I certainly can tell you that I had no knowledge or desire of joining the military. I was not one of those kids that, from a young age looked at the Marine or had the idea to do that.
Well, I won't say who, but I had a veteran on the show just a little while ago, and he said when he was 10 years old, he wanted to be a garbage man. He thought riding around on the truck, grabbing onto the side of the truck sounded like a funny thing. I said, but a great thing to do. But I said, thank God you didn't take that career path, because we got a good veteran.
Yeah. Yep. And look, the veterans, I think a lot of people, when they think about the military, they think of it in a way that, once you do that, that's it. Well, most of our veterans come out of the military and go on to have amazing careers. I was telling you earlier, I have a daughter who just joined the Navy. First, I've never been more proud in my entire life of anything. The second thing is I've never been more excited about something. She's going to go into intelligence in the Navy. And in intelligence, the career path is limitless. She goes down to Virginia Beach for her school. And in that area of the country, you have Langley, you have the FBI, you have all the three-letter organizations that are unbelievable careers. I have an uncle that contracted with the CIA. I have another uncle that was in intelligence, good money, and it's one huge adventure.
Well, and the thing is, I see with being in the military, you can be a part of the military and come out with a marketable skill. And you can't necessarily go to college and have a marketable skill. And some people join the military, like Amy Fowle. I had her on a couple of weeks ago, and she said, well, exactly that. I saw it as a career path. I was kind of drifting, and it gave me the discipline and qualities that I needed to have in my life. And there are people like, which is a perfectly honorable thing to do. But your story is a little bit different. You were motivated after 9/11 because you felt a responsibility to do something for your country, right?
Yeah, it's a mix of a couple of things. I definitely did not join for it being a career path, because before it was put into my lap, the idea to join the Marine Corps, I didn't know anything about the Marine Corps. I had heard of something called the Marines before. I had heard that they were pretty tough, and that's all. I had no idea. And I was having a great time after high school. I had a really good job at Coca-Cola. I was making a lot of money. I was a salesman for them. And my two best friends came to me one night. I was partying 3-4 nights a week. I had my own townhome. I had a couple of roommates. Thought about what my future was going to be. I would have stayed at Coca-Cola probably. And 9/11 happened. And, I told the story too much to go into detail about how I experienced it. But I can remember thinking, as I was watching those people jump from the towers, it was the first time in my life that I had a sense of, oh, we need justice. Somebody has to get justice for this. It cannot go unanswered. And then my buddy showed up one night for a party and said, oh, yeah, by the way, we met with a recruiter yesterday. We're going to the Marine Corps. You should come with us. And I was like, what does that even mean? Does that mean like I move away for good? No. We're going in the reserves. So we'll just join. We'll do basic training, our school, and then we come back here and we'll just continue to party. And then, whatever. And I said, all right, yeah, I'm in. Went and talked to the recruiter, signed me up. He called me about a month later and said, hey, I don't have any more. We were going to go into motor transport, drive trucks. He said, I don't have any more spots for motor transport open, so you're going to have to go infantry. And I said, well, will I still be with Ryan and Barrett, my two friends? He goes, yeah, you will, because you're going to the reserves. I said, okay, I'm in. He called me another month later, and he said, hey, I don't have any more reserve positions open, so you're going to have to go active duty. And I don't remember. I am not the type of person that normally would have said yes to that. I don't know why I said yes in that moment, but I must have just been thinking, I don't have anything else really going here other than just having fun. I'm going to do it. And it was so out of character that when I went to my parents' house to tell them about it, their response was, no, you're not. That's insane. And I sat down, I showed them the book at the table. And we actually just discussed this with them recently. They were stunned. And then I think they didn't believe I was actually going to go through with it. Yeah. And then I did. And it was the first time I saw my father. No, it was the second time I saw my father cry. The first time was when his grandfather died. It's the second time I saw my father cry. Which is making me absolutely dread the day that my daughter leaves. She's leaving in February. And the way that they do it is very quick. The recruiter pulls in your driveway. He stays in the car. And you got to say that goodbye in your driveway to your child that is leaving, in her case, for 6 years.
Yeah.
And when I was doing it, I was like, oh my God, my dad is crying. This is so uncomfortable. It's so awkward. I got to get out of here. I got in the car. Yeah. The perspective is so different now. Like I am already having anxiety, but like I'm going to be an absolute mess.
Well, it's just human nature. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
So that's quite a thing to, sign up for active duty and then sent to Afghanistan. So tell me a little bit about Afghanistan. If somebody were to take back a thought or a story about it, what would you say?
First of all, people get surprised when I say this. Afghanistan, especially in the northeastern region, which is where I spent a lot of my time, is one of the most beautiful countries you could ever. People get this vision like it's just a desert.
Right.
It's not. It's like Colorado. I was in the mountains. It was unbelievably beautiful. One of the thoughts I always used to get when I was there was, man, what a shame. This country would be a huge tourist attraction. People would love to go vacation in Afghanistan if it wasn't shackled by this fanatic regime. But I thought there are a number of moments that I can think back on that were interesting, and I got a couple of funny moments. One of the funnier things that happened in Afghanistan is we would bring with us these small portable heaters because in the winters it's brutally cold in Afghanistan, and I would have nights where I had to be up on watch or something like that to guard a perimeter, and it's just suffering. And so the problem with the heaters, we had trouble lighting them and then keeping them lit. And so I wrote my dad, and he said, well, I'll send you some butane. If you just use butane in them, they'll light right away. And he sent me these compressed bottles of butane in the mail, and I got them. And the next time we were out, I was with a friend of mine in my platoon. Both of us were on one side of a perimeter. It was probably 1 or 2 in the morning, freezing cold, windy. And we said, well, we'll get the heater out. We'll try out this butane and see if it works. And again, this is how young I was. I didn't know anything about butane. And I said, he said, well, what are we going to use to light this? And I said, I got a notebook in my day pack. I'm just going to rip a bunch of pages out and we'll use that. So I rip out 30, 40 pages of paper, crumple them up, put it in this little heater. And I looked at him and I said, so how much butane are we supposed to use? And he said, I don't know, just spray like half the bottle in there. That'll keep it lit all night.
Ooh.
And I said, okay. And I put it down and I started spraying and I probably held the thing down for 15, 20 seconds. And he got a match out and we flung the match into this heater and it exploded like, I mean, it looked like an IED had gone off on our perimeter. And I can remember, the way I remember it is it happened and then him and I just stood there and stared at each other. Like, I don't know what's going to happen right now. And there was silence.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the radio started going. What happened? Everybody at full alert. We had caused the whole platoon to think that we were under attack. And the solution or the resolution to all of that was we got our heaters all taken away. So the butane had good intentions, but
it sounded like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, it did. But there were things in Afghanistan that, I mean, I could remember thinking, nobody else will ever experience anything like this. Moments up in the mountain. One of the cooler things, I was on a forward operating base called Asadabad, and we were on that base. We were connected to an Army Special Forces team, and then there were a couple of there was a PRT team, which is a provincial reconstruction team. And then there were a couple of agency guys from the CIA, and they would be there to determine if the detainees that we took in were worthy of going forward to Bagram and then to other places to be interrogated, or were they just low-level guys that we were going to, kick back out.
Okay.
And we were riding back to base one night, and this guy, I almost felt bad for him, almost, like a deer in headlights. He was in the middle of the road. There was about a 4-foot hole. He was still holding the shovel, and there was a rocket laying right next to his foot. And we caught him red-handed, and he was just staring into our headlights, frozen. And it was like, yeah, man, you have no excuse. And he, to his credit, he came right with. We got out, we flexi-cuffed him, we threw him in the back, and we brought him up to the base. And the agency guys immediately started interrogating him. And one of them had found out that he was responsible for an IED that had killed the brother of the Special Forces team sergeant like 2 years prior to that.
Wow.
And they told him about it, which was not the correct thing to do. That was probably a mistake. And, he lost his temper and he came up and he did some harm to that individual, and there was a lot of trouble. This was shortly after Abu Ghraib, I think, so they were cracking down hard on any harm that came to detainees. And so the agency guys came to me because I was going to be manning that detention facility that night, and they said, "Look, this guy's coming someone's coming to pick him up. We need you to escort him to the front gate when they get here. We need you not to say one word to them. Don't even open your mouth. They're going to hand you something to sign. You sign it. You hand it back to them, and then they'll take him. They're coming in a helicopter." And I said, okay. And the time came. I remember thinking I didn't hear a helicopter come in. And I certainly didn't see anything come in. So maybe they came in a truck or something. And I walked him to the front gate, and there was a helicopter that had landed right there. And these guys got off, and they had weapons and kit that I had never seen in my life. And I was connected to an Army Special Forces team with a few CIA guys on the base. So I'd seen, high-tech stuff before. These guys, it was like out of a movie, it was like bodysuits with the green band across there, like even their night vision. I'd never seen night vision that looked like that.
Wow.
And they came up and they handed me this little book. I signed it. They took him. They threw him on the helicopter, and he was gone. So the I guess the point of that is that the arsenal that we have at our disposal is beyond imagination. Like our military is the best military in the world. I mean, we have advances in technology that very few people know about, and I got the unique experience to see some of it.
Well, yeah. Every once in a while, it evidences itself, like this B-2 thing with it.
Yeah.
You can't bomb Iran. Here, hold my beer.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, that was I'm just a little bit of a history buff or military buff or whatever. But so the Israelis go in and they take out their air defenses, right? And then they come in with the B-2, like perfectly strategically done. Where and the other thing about that is that the press was deriding it, like, oh, you didn't get everything. Well, you got enough. you got enough.
Yeah, people got on. This stuff is not like the movies.
Yeah.
Right. It's this stuff when you do an operation like that.
Yeah.
Something is going to go wrong in the first 30 seconds. Nothing ever comes off like it does in the movies. Like, so for example, that pager operation where they took out all the Hezbollah operatives, somebody should make a movie about that, because it's unbelievable how they could have done that to the degree that they did. It shows the competency of the Israeli forces.
Well, you look at what Jimmy Carter did trying to get the hostages, and the helicopters all ran into each other in the desert or whatever. It's just horrible. I mean, just horrible stuff. And it's come a long way since then.
I think the most impressive example of how lethal and effective our military can be is, do you remember the Captain Phillips story?
Yeah.
The merchant ship where the captain was taken by Somali pirates. The resolution to that is something people really need to think about, how challenging that was. So they had multiple ships that had surrounded this. These are aircraft carriers or real big Navy ships with a SEAL team split into 3 different ships, laying down on the back of these ships in the waves that they were on, with 3 different men in 3 different scopes with sights on them, as the ship is listing up and down simultaneously, 3 headshots in those conditions. If anybody who's ever fired a rifle at a range or anything like that will tell you how nearly impossible that is to pull off. Almost unbelievable. They pulled it off. And that to me shows how competent some of the more elite forces in our military are.
So let's change the subject just a little bit to what you do and your job responsibilities. And one of the things that I learned from you a while back is there's a program for the people that were interpreters for you in Afghanistan. You're trying to get them to be citizens of the United States, and you have a program for that, right?
Yeah, I'm currently the acting chair of the board in that program right now. It's called Keeping Our Promise. The executive director is a woman named Ellen Smith. And the mission of that program is to take vetted Afghan interpreters who are approved by the State Department to come here, who by definition are SIVs, special immigrant visas. Those are individuals who did a certain amount of time with an American unit in Afghanistan, and give them new lives here in our country. Because when I was out there raiding compounds and kicking doors in, we could not have done that without them. And they literally were shoulder to shoulder with us doing it. And so in my mind, I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. In my mind, they did nothing different than we did. They served their country and ours by doing that. And by the way, they did it only because we told them, we'll take care of you if you do this. And so, yeah, I've dedicated a lot of my life to trying to keep that promise to them.
Well, and from what I heard, there's some that won't leave because they don't want to leave their family behind, right?
Yeah, we at Keeping Our Promise, we will take the entire family with them. Now it's very difficult because a lot of times their family can't get all approved. And so some of them do have to split from their families. But we are taking as many as we can get. You know, I know there's been some pushback from the community about this, and I'm happy to have that conversation all the time. And I had a unique experience when I was overseas. I was shoulder to shoulder with these guys, and I think we owe it to them. And I know I do personally. And so, you know, I've dedicated myself to that. Some people argue that we're making the community less safe or things like that. You know, the State Department vets them.
Well, the thing is, too, is that when you do that and you leave them out to dry, then the next generation or place that you have to get people's loyalty, I mean, they question it because you didn't back them up the first time. I mean, like I said, just a personal opinion, but that Afghanistan thing was, I mean, the evacuation was just horrible. It sent a signal to everybody, the world, that we don't have the nerve to do what we need to do. And what was 13 service people got killed in that whole thing, right? I mean, that's just horrible.
I think the word for it to me is incompetence. Mm-hmm. We showed how incompetent our government and our military could be, and it's not on the military. That was a political decision that was made, and I think it was made out of selfish intentions to do it that way. And the whole thing was just incompetence. Mm-hmm. And yes, it sends a massive signal around the world. Because God forbid, well, it's not even God forbid, we are going to go into combat again at some point with someone. And when we go to those locals or those nationals saying, we need you to work with us so that we can overcome this regime or whatever it is that we're fighting, they're going to say, no, thanks. Mm-hmm. We saw what happened in Afghanistan. We're not signing up for that.
Well, we were talking before the show about this number 2027. And I heard online from a very good analyst that the speech by Hegseth was really about 2027, and 2027, for the people who don't know, is the date that the premier of China said that he wanted to take Taiwan by. And as people say, when somebody tells you what they are, and what they want to do, you should believe them. And so this whole thing with Hegseth was, listen, guys and gals. We have to be as lethal as we can be and prepared for 2 years from now.
And maybe not even prepare for something inevitable 2 years from now, but maybe he's thinking that's how we stop this from happening. We have to be so much of a deterrent that they don't believe that it's worth it. This generation of Americans have a hard time conceptualizing something on the proportional level of a world war, because we have not seen it since World War II. Right now, the Ukrainians are seeing it. They're dying by the thousands. That's not something that America has seen in our generation. And so I think people have a hard time believing that there ever could come a day where we are engaged with a country like China. But anybody who works for Department of Defense or in government will tell you that that is absolutely a reality that could happen. And I think at all costs, we need to do whatever we need to do to deter that from happening, because it would be death on a scale that is hard to comprehend.
And you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you're talking about these weapons that we have. They surely have weapons that we're not aware of either. So let's get a little bit more into what you do and what can local people, the general public, do to help veterans? I mean, what's the best way for us to be involved?
Yeah, there's so many ways to be involved. You know, when I got out of the military, I had a rough time getting back up on my feet. And I use a number of different services and programs to help me do that. And I was very fortunate to have a few people in my life that I was able to rely on to help pull me up from what I was dealing with. And I found my way. I've worked for every level of government. I went back and got my education. I got my master's degree. in public administration. I've worked for state government, contracted for federal government, and then the greatest opportunity that I'll ever have in my life opened in 2018, where the job at the county opened up for the Veteran Service Agency. And I knew immediately that is what I wanted, is to dedicate my life to bringing real, tangible assistance to veterans. And what I mean when I say that is that people can have the best of intentions with what they want to do for veterans. And there are a few things that we can do for our veterans that will go a long way for them. And then there are lots of things that we can do that have little to no effect on them. Again, with the best of intentions. The very first thing, money. Money is the money makes all the difference in anyone's life. I know people like to say, money was not what matters, but yeah, it matters a lot. And so what we do at the county is we assist veterans in their application process for compensation and represent them through that process and hopefully get good decisions from the VA on their behalf. And when we don't get good decisions from the VA on their behalf, we represent them in the appeals process all the way through to going in front of a judge and representing them in front of a judge, almost as an attorney would in a courtroom. And the greatest thing about the position that I'm in and what the county does is that it is separate from the VA, and we are only there to get the best decision we possibly can for that veteran. We're not the gatekeeper to that benefit. We're not somebody who's going to sit there and say, you don't deserve this benefit. We just want to help them get it. And the amount of money that the county has brought in from the federal VA to veterans who live in our county, all I can give you are numbers from last year. In monthly disability payments, we were just under $100 million to veterans in Monroe County.
Wow.
And in retroactive payments, I think we were just over $9 million. And that is, when I say retroactive payments, that is money that would not have come to veterans had they accepted the decision from the VA in the first place. That is money that we fought for and were able to attain for them. So it goes a long way when I'm able to call a veteran and say, hey, listen, you know that case you've been fighting for the last 3 years or 4 years? We won it, and you need to watch your bank account because in the next 2 or 3 days, you're going to have $250,000 deposited.
God bless you. God bless you. So you were talking about a kind of touching on a concept. It's not money. It's the effective use of money.
Yeah,
it's the effective use of money. So touching on that, we were talking before the show about there are places where you can donate and you can have an effect, and then there are other places that are collecting money and using it for their own staff and whatever. I mean, what are the better places that if somebody wanted to make a check, they can send a check to, and it has your approval? Or you're telling me it's a legit thing. I mean, you see, Wounded Warriors, is that legit? Is it not legit? I mean, is there any place that you can? Well, I guess we could just send a check to the Monroe County.
Well, you can't do that. That is one place you can't
do that. Okay, so what can we do?
As a matter of fact, I'll be more specific. You already do that.
Okay,
we get your taxes. Okay, and that's how we operate.
Okay, but conceptually, that's what I'm talking about, because my dad taught me years ago, because he was very involved in charities. People have time or they have money.
Yep.
Okay. So if you don't have the time to go out and help host an event or something like that, if they wanted to send a check to someplace legitimate, where would they send the check?
Yeah. So I always approach this with caution, because there's people out in the community who, regardless of what I say, will take exception to it. Oh, he didn't say us, or oh, he's funneling.
Yeah, I got it.
But what I'll give people a couple of generalities that they can.
Okay.
First, I always encourage people to stay local with their donations. I'm sure national organizations do a lot, but I very, very rarely see them here in Monroe County. Maybe if you're in a bigger city, you might see them. But so I always say take a look at the local organizations. There are a lot of veteran organizations that we have in Monroe County and the surrounding counties that are very worthy of your donations. And then I encourage people to do your research before you donate to an organization. Pull their documents. Look at how much their executives are getting paid. Look at how much money is going to the veteran versus overhead, things like that. That's how you're going to figure out where your money is going to have the greatest impact.
Yeah, and I can give people a direction to go and research that. There's a place called ProPublica.com. I don't know if it's .org.com, but you can look up a 501c3 and see exactly how they operate and where the money goes. And you'll be surprised. There are places here in Rochester that are okay, and there's some of them like, oh man, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and when you're talking veterans, children, the elderly, there is, like we were talking about earlier, the nonprofit sector. Sometimes that word can be misleading because there are people who are making quite a bit of profit in salaries that work at these nonprofits. And you got to be careful with that, and especially after the war started, one of the things that we saw happening was everybody wanted to start a veterans organization. Some of them with the best of intentions, some of them because, my other nonprofit is really struggling. And if I start a veterans nonprofit, people will want to donate to it, and then I can, funnel money wherever I need to within that nonprofit. Because that's what pulls on the heartstrings of people. People want to donate to, the sick, the elderly, children, veterans, things like that. So again, it just comes back to know the organization that you're donating to. We have some very good ones here in Monroe County. We have some that have good intentions that might not, get as much done. And then, just like anywhere else, we have some that are not the best of intentions.
Well, Nick, we're unfortunately out of time. I'm going to have you on again and not wait another 3 or 4 years to do it. But one thing that you can do for me is we're having these segments every week about honoring a vet, and some stories are very interesting and some stories are very, very interesting, but there's always an interesting story there. So if you can send some veterans my way for these interviews, I really would like it. And thank you for what you do, and thank you for your service, and thank you for coming to my studio.
Yeah, thanks for telling these stories, Dom, and having me on. And thank you for also what you set up here to have veterans tell their stories. They're important for people to hear so that we understand what young men and women are doing for our country, and that it's not a political decision to join the military. It really is a sacrifice that can lead to great things. So hopefully we can get some more veterans on to tell those stories.
Well, and I think a part of that is that when somebody says that they're joining the military, there's portions of their family that go, oh, why are you doing that? And why? And you know what? When you hear the stories, it lets you know the story.
Sure.
The only way of learning the story is learning the story.
Yeah. And let's face it, people in America, if you're in America, relative to the rest of the world, you're living a pretty privileged life.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of people who just will never know the suffering that people across this globe go through on a day-to-day basis. And my daughter will know.
Yep.
When she goes into the military, she'll see that. And, again, it's the proudest moment of my life. And hopefully people understand that we need our youth to join the military. That's the only option we have for a future.
Well, again, thank you for coming in, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for listening. You can find our previous shows at nononsenseroundtable.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.